But when it comes to certain items, things are better. No tax on tips. You have a tremendous amount of people who work in the service industry in this country.
The Fox News poll said the number one issue is the economy, and she's trying to fight back against that. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So Fox News had a panel of voters, and they were asking voters about how they feel about the midterm election, and if they plan to vote for a Democrat or Republican, and why, and what are some of the issues that they see today. And so we're going to take a look at this. And I just want to say, I do my intro, this intro that I'm doing now, I do this at the end of my videos. And I do that because when I react to the video, I want it to be the first time that I see it. And so that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video. If you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the video. Here we go.
Primary season is almost over, and that means we are about 13 plus weeks away from the time when you vote on which political party controls the power on Capitol Hill. And as we do it here on the Faulkner Focus, voters' voices matter most. Historically, the party which holds the presidency loses ground. That's seats in the House and Senate. And a recent Fox poll on the generic ballot shows Democrats hold a slight edge, 1 point outside the margin of error.
It's so interesting how they phrase that, right? So you're looking at the poll and they're talking about the margin of error because it makes it look a little bit better. But you see the Democratic candidate, so we're talking about generic ballots, what we're looking at here, 53% for Democrats, 46% for Republicans, but they had to throw that margin of error in there. Okay, now when you throw the margin of error in there, there's only 1 point difference, which is true. Okay, because we don't know. That margin of error could go either way. But it's just interesting how Fox News phrases that. Instead of just showing us the numbers, which that's normally what they do, they had to get into the margin of error because it just makes it look a little less damaging for Republicans.
And when it comes to those highly motivated in the midterm elections to vote, it's a virtual tie between Republicans and Democrats. Now look at that. That is remarkable. Way above 80% for both. People are ready to vote. A separate national poll shows the economy as the top issue on voters' minds as November fast approaches. The economy by a wide margin, in fact. And something causing a huge rift in the Democrat Party, particularly the rise of socialism and radical left candidates running and winning in primaries all across the country. A new poll shows a majority of Democrats say they see socialism favorably, as well as the major organization backing socialist candidates, the DSA. Republicans very much have the opposite opinion.
Now, it's interesting they didn't throw in the margin of error there. You see the margin of error has changed a little bit down there, but she didn't talk about that margin of error, but she talks about the margin of error when it benefits. And another interesting thing, CNN just did a poll, and their poll shows 2/3 of Democrats are not on board with DSA. But here it looks like, they're showing the poll. It's the majority of Democrats are, on board for the DSA, as well as, the majority of Democrats like socialism is basically what this poll is showing.
And earlier this morning, 8 people spanning the political spectrum say it's time now to hear them talk. So here are the voters' voices. In the front row, from left to right, we have Kieran, a Republican, Naomi, a Democrat, Ruben, Republican, Mary Josephine, an independent. And in the back row, again, left to right, Jay, a Democrat, Dominic, independent, Corey, Democrat, Robin, Republican. Welcome all in right now. I want to jump right in with something that kind of surprised me. You guys all talked with my team. You kind of set up where you are going into the midterm elections. And Naomi, you're new to Voters' Voices. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
You said that you are now kind of a centrist Democrat.
Yes.
But I notice that you are all over the place politically and that there are some problems in the Democrat Party for you.
Yes.
Talk to us.
Yes, since I'm a centrist, I don't like anything on the extremes on either side. So I'm pretty unhappy with things going farther to the left in the Democratic Party. And I think that when it comes to governing people, I don't see a lot happening when people are far on the left and far on the right. I think people need to be closer to the center to be able to work across parties and actually get something done.
All right, and
I would think the majority of people feel like she feels. You know, you go too far to the right, you go too far to the left, you're not going to get anything done because they have their own agendas when you go to the extreme left and extreme right. But when you're closer to the middle, you could at least work together and get things done. And so a lot of what we see now in Congress is nothing gets done. And that poses a problem for constituents because they're not seeing anything change. They're not seeing any change because you have two sides that just continue to fight against each other.
Corey actually and Corey, you guys can kind of talk to each other if you want to jump in here, but I specifically have this question. You both listed anti-Semitism as your number one concern this voter cycle. Real quickly, Corey, your thoughts.
I think that anti-Semitism has become extremely normalized. When the mayor of New York is addressing a country in the Middle East that's the only Jewish state in the world, I think it's just he's trying to promote his own agenda, and it's fanning the flames of the divisiveness that's going on. And I have personally experienced a horrid normalization of anti-Semitism and just how wide it's become and accepted.
I'm sorry to hear that it has been that personal experience for you. Real quickly, you told my team you're a homeless Democrat. What does that mean politically?
I feel that I don't have a place in really either party. I'm also somewhat of a centrist as well. I've always had progressive beliefs. I support a lot of progressive ideas. However, I'm not happy with the way that either party is going. I think they're both becoming extremely extreme. And, it's that horseshoe method where now they're meeting here and nothing is getting done here in the center where we really need this country to move forward.
Interesting. All right. I see that you may be voting for a Republican for New York governor, Bruce Blakeman. He's picking up in the polls. They're only a couple of points apart, he and Kathy Hochul. So that's interesting, too. All right. So I started off with two Democrats. Ruben, I want you to weigh in here based on what you've just heard, but also what's important this midterm cycle.
Well, it's the most significant midterm that this country's going to have. You have a cancer brewing here and it's building up very fast. People looking at these small towns and villages and mayor's offices, but I think it's going to go even further if we don't nip it in the butt. Right now, the socialists, and I don't call them socialists, they're actually communists. This is something that's going real fast, and if we don't get control of it, somehow it's going to absorb us. And I say get control, not negative, but we really got to get the message out. As a Republican, conservative Republican, we really got to get our message out there and make it stronger so that people, especially those who are in the middle, you got the independent voters you got to keep an eye on. They will go with us this time around, I hope, if these guys continue doing what they're doing.
Well, one thing we do here on Voters' Voices and the Faulkner Focus is we want to talk with real people. And we find that here in New York City, a lot of times, especially during summer, you've got people coming from all over the country. So we sent out our crew to talk about this topic of Democrat socialism. Let's watch.
Countries and leaders that have embraced socialism has had such a tragic end to it, and the people are the ones that end up suffering the most.
Social Security is a socialist program. Medicare is a socialist program. SNAP benefits. So it really depends on how you define socialism. I think people try to exploit it as to what it's being described as today.
I don't know. Desperation. Lack of knowledge. I don't think they know the impact it could have. I don't know, ignorance.
Anything goes as long as it's not a Republican, is the way people feel, I think. How are they going to do all the stuff that was promised for you people when they voted for him? How is he going to do all that?
Isn't that what we fought in Vietnam? Communism, which is kind of like the brother of the cousin or other of communism and socialism.
All right, I want to take quickly a look at this poll. The popularity of Democrat socialists and socialism as a whole, as Ruben said, moving across the country. Let's take a look at that. And while we're looking at the screen, Dom, I come to you for your thoughts. You are an independent. You're somewhere in the middle sometimes. How do you see the rise of socialism?
Yeah, listen, this is a shocking statistic. I think that America is in real trouble if this is the trend that's going to continue in the future. We need to come back to more traditional values, and like Corey said, both sides are just becoming more and more extreme, and we need to become more centered. The last time we did this segment, it was nice to see that the panel was aligned that we need to become more centered, and hopefully that trend starts soon.
So that's so interesting.
Okay, and what's really interesting, and I'm going to cut away for a second. We'll come back because this is the first time I watch it. I haven't watched this before, but I just see where it's going. And when the very beginning, when she was showing the stats, what was the number one issue? The number one issue was not democratic socialists. The number one issue was affordability. It was inflation. That was the number one issue. We're already 10 minutes into this survey, and she hasn't asked them about affordability once. That's the number one issue. I could see it if you wanted to take each issue and talk a little bit about each issue, but you talk about the number one issue first, because that's what's most important to the American people. But they're not talking about that. They're not talking about it, at least not yet. We'll see if they continue and talk about it.
Interesting, because we do this, on election night, general election night. We kind of do it every few months. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. Sorry.
And so what is happening right now? We're getting closer to election. I get that. But what do you think is happening?
I think that in New York City specifically, the Democrats are just swinging far too left, and people are getting on board with this mayor and this socialist mentality, and they're seeing, he won, and other people want to get in the bandwagon and go with this.
You're talking about New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani, but we've got, we have these people all over the country. You've got,
and there's not that many. That's another thing. I mean, look at all of the candidates who are running for office. You can say all the Democrats that are running for office. I would say it's less than 1% that are talking about, DSA. The rest of them are Democrats. Okay, so just regular Democrats, moderates, or, they could be progressive, but they're not far left. And so, it's so interesting that this is the discussion. You do a survey, but you don't ask about the most important issues that people are facing today.
El Sayed up in Michigan. You've got leftover. You've got.
She doesn't have El Sayed. Okay. And El Sayed has already indicated that he's not a part of the DSA platform, but they're going to put his name in there. But she doesn't have very many people to go on, to talk about, because there's not very many.
Chicago, everybody's getting in. I want to take a look now.
So she mentioned, and I'm sorry, I keep cutting it off, but I just want to, she mentioned 3 potential candidates, right? And one of them has already indicated that he's not. That's El Sayed. But 2 other candidates. Mamdani, he's not a candidate. He's actual mayor. And then in Chicago. Okay, and maybe 1 or 2 in Chicago. I don't know where she's going with that. But 4 people out of all the candidates who are running right now, all the candidates on the Democratic ticket, she named 4. And this is a huge problem. And so I just wanted to mention that, because when we're watching these different outlets, how they're presenting things, if you're doing a survey, you should be talking to the people about the major issues, the issues that they are facing every day. So I want to make a quick pitch here. If you guys are liking the content on my channel, make sure you go over and join my Substack. It's free. And on my Substack, you're going to get articles that are based on some of the videos that I've posted, as well as every video that I post on YouTube, I also post it on Substack, and Substack will send you an email notification so you'll never miss any of my videos. Link is in the description.
The top issues that people say that they will be looking at. And of course, we hit the streets. So let's hear from voters who are on the streets first, and then we'll come back to our voters' voices. Watch this.
That we keep the House and the Senate is the most important thing to me, because I feel that our country is going to go downhill if Trump doesn't continue to be able to go forward with his policies. I know he's not perfect, but I think he's doing a lot of good.
Voter ID is just number 1 for me. Keeping our elections fair, free. Everyone who should be able to vote is allowed to vote. And if you're not, then you shouldn't. That's as simple as, I can make that.
Not that there's a big difference between the Democratic and the Republican Party, but I'd love the pendulum to swing the other way to see what the Democrats can do with control of the House and the Senate.
If the Dems take over in November, it's going to be 2 years of impeachment and all the other nonsense, and nothing's going to happen.
International relations, I wish we could establish better relationships across the world, because we need to be the models of peace. The U.S. can be and has been the model of peace and can be again.
I'm all for legal immigration. I'm all for helping people, you know, I love that. But when you come here illegally and work around our laws to benefit yourself at the expense of American citizens, I just have a real problem with that.
Robin, I see you nodding a lot.
Okay, there we go again. Here's the screen. The number one issue, the economy. The number two issue, ethics, government ethics and reform. And we just saw them interview people on the street. None of them mentioned that. They didn't show any of those clips of people. And I'm sure, I say none of them, I'm sure there were some people that they interviewed that did say the number one issue, economy, the number two, government ethics. I'm sure some of those people that they asked on the street said that, but they probably didn't put those people in there. And so it's just interesting. You see a Fox News poll and they're not talking about the number one issue.
A lot.
Why?
I just agree with a lot of what they're saying. My top issue is anti-Semitism. I actually just left New York City and moved to New Jersey because I did not feel comfortable raising my Jewish son in New York City with the current mayor. But immigration is another one that's very important to me. I believe in, tightening the borders.
Okay.
And just making sure that the people that are voting legally and, fair elections. Isn't that what a democracy is? And I think we've really gone sort of off the rails in a lot of this.
A lot of people talking economy. And one of the reasons why, Karen, and you are young, you're about to hit your senior year in college, is affordability. Talk to me about that.
100%. I mean, economic issues, especially someone young coming out of college, starting jobs, starting my life. I mean, it's a huge issue. However, I do think this midterm is quite unique because truly it's not left versus right. In my eyes, this is radicalism against common sense. And if you ask that question of common sense and which party has more of it, I don't even think it's a question. Border security, voter ID, cutting taxes, having people keep their money. I think that's an important policy that I appreciate. So I think if common sense is the voters' North Stars, I think the Republicans are going to do quite well in November.
Jay, your top issues.
My top issues have to do with the economy, which has not seen any improvement under the current administration. We have seen a president who does not seem to be worried about the median average American. And that's been shown in many different ways, from his tariff agenda to his choosing to pick a war with Iran. These things harm the average American person. The fact that healthcare is up, the fact that gas is up, the fact that cost of housing is up.
It's been expensive for a long time. And the former President Obama policies didn't help that. And I hear.
And so I'm trying to watch this and I'm trying to not be judgmental, but you heard people respond. You just heard the kid right before him talking, and he got all of what he wanted to say out there. Now, this gentleman is talking about the economy, talking about affordability and healthcare, and now she's cutting him off and trying to correct him and say, well, this and that. Wow.
What you're saying. I do wonder where you get the engagement that things are not, at least in some areas, notwithstanding gasoline, we are at war in the Middle East, and that has ticked up and ticked down. But when it comes to certain items, things are better. No tax on tips. You have a tremendous amount of people who work in the service industry in this country.
The Fox News poll said the number one issue is the economy, and she's trying to fight back against that. The poll is showing that. So it's not just this gentleman talking about it. The poll is showing 29%, double digits, 29% when it comes to the economy. Everything else was 9% or less. And she's trying to say, well, I don't understand. Why is, wow. I don't have anything else to say. Let's just finish. Let's watch this.
And so that has made a big difference. What's your thought, Mary Josephine?
I mean, and then not to mention, she says her piece and then goes to the next person, doesn't even let the gentleman finish his thought because she cut him off when he was in mid-thought.
No tax on tips, of course it helps. But I think one of the reasons why we are seeing so many move, to a more radical policy, especially on the left, is because they're dismayed. Affordability in New York City, if you're from New York City, even honestly across the country right now, it's difficult. Housing is up. Interest rates, if you're trying to buy a home, is up. Housing in general is up. So it's hard if you're just starting out. Yes, prices have come down in the grocery store. Yes, they have, but it's still relatively high compared to 4 or 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, we know that COVID, kind of initiated that high inflation because of what happened during that time, but we still.
Well, Biden's policies didn't help.
No,
at some point, we were leading other countries with 9-point-something% in inflation.
And so there she goes again. She doesn't like what she's hearing. She cuts off the person, mid-thought. They're still going on, and she cuts them off, and then she'll probably go to someone else and ask them a question. But it's just, when it comes down to it, if we're looking at the number one issue as the economy, you can fight all you want and say, well, it's not the economy, it's not the economy. And that sounds, she's trying to cut these people off as they're speaking. This lady's an independent, and she's saying, look, we're all feeling this. This is the number one issue. It's not all this other stuff that you guys are talking about. This is the number one issue. And you can go back and say, well, it's Biden's fault. President Trump came in saying that he was going to take care of it. That is why people are upset with President Trump, because he said that he's bringing prices down when it comes to groceries. He's bringing gas prices down. We're not going to start any new wars. All of this stuff that the president was promising, we're now faced with. Prices haven't come down. And the other lady was saying prices have come down in the grocery store. I haven't seen it. I guess it depends on where you live. I'm sure in New York, prices haven't come down that much. But in California, prices haven't come down. They've actually gone up. You can look at the Consumer Price Index. I look at it every month. And prices for groceries right now is about 2.7%, which means it's increased. That's year over year. Okay, they want it more at about 2%. So it has gone up. It's gone up more than what the Federal Reserve wants it to go up.
Quickly, show of hands. No. I said in some places you were leading other countries.
Many countries were in the 20%.
I didn't say every country. I said some.
I understand that, but there was a hard decision that.
And he's going back and forth. I think he got a little frustrated because he was trying to say what he wanted to say, and she cut him off. And that 9% that she's referring to is 9.1%. It was 1 month in 2022, and then from that point, it started to go down. This is during the Biden administration, of course. It started to go down, and it went down. When President Trump came into office, it was at 3%. What is CPI today? What is inflation today? Inflation today is at 3.5%. And so it's higher than when President Trump came into office. And so that's what we should be focusing on. When President Trump came into office, it was at 3%. Now it's at 3.5%. And so something needs to be done in order to bring those prices back down.
Exactly what we had. So real quickly, because I want to do a quick show of hands here. How many of you are voting per the party that you normally do? So if you're Democrat, Republican, how you normally vote? Show of hands. How many are going with it? How many of you are considering a shift? Interesting. The first two Democrats I started with. And that was hinged on anti-Semitism, which for at least 3 of you is your number one issue. The economy, also very important for everybody. Great to have you all on Voters' Voices. I wish we had more time. I always do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so that was the Fox News, the survey that they did. I wish she would have asked everyone on that panel, how do you feel about affordability? How do you feel about the current administration's policies? That's the question that I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear all of them answer that question, because that's not what we saw. We just saw a lot of some of the stuff that she was asking about, it wasn't even in the poll that she showed in the very beginning. And so it's just interesting, like, why not address the issues that are in that poll? Why not address government ethics and corruption? Why not address the economy? These are the top 2 issues. So I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.